Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Kids from It podcast. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined, as always, by Kay, Tequila Mockingjay. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hello, Governor. I'm good. I'm ready, excited to dive into more doomsday convo.
I love it. I love it. I mean, now that, hard to think of a better time, right? You might as well with what everything's going on now. It's kind of fitting. Before we started the show backstage, Kayla, you were mentioning about going live on Instagram and how it's kind of a pain. Yes, it is.
I didn't even do it this time.
Yeah,
I didn't do it.
I talked about I've done it a few times. I've gone live on Instagram a few times, and it's funny complaining about it because all it really is like 4 clicks, copying and pasting. That's it. But It's obnoxious. Doing it every time the show starts is horrible. Once again, it's a real first world problem. It only takes like 15 seconds, but you got to open the tab, log in, find the stream key, add it on StreamYard, copy it, and then you have to wait till the show starts. Then when the show starts, you click live again. No, fuck that. Not happening. It's obnoxious. I see why you didn't do it.
It's also an extra layer of pressure. I feel like when we put our videos up on YouTube, like it's fine. Like I don't really know who's viewing it. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Instagram, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't want my friends watching me live tonight.
This is
it's also a pain in the butt.
It is. This is a funny thing I've heard other people say, other content creators, where some folks will actually saw this on Twitter. I used to be a big Twitter poster back in the day, and a lot of people would talk about how they didn't want their Twitter content. They wanted to be anonymous on Twitter. They didn't want their friends to know what they were saying. And then other people, they post social media or videos on social media, and they say, "Oh no, my friends found my social media post," and it's like, I really want my friends to see my social media post. They're going to hear
audience.
Exactly. Yeah. They're the first people in line. Yeah, I absolutely want them to know what I'm talking about. It's like, but then again, this is stuff that I say all the time anyway. Like no one watching this is surprised at all by anything I say. So I don't know. Maybe other people are different. Like maybe folks are a lot quieter in their personal time. I don't know.
I don't know either. Either way, I skipped it tonight. Maybe I will next. I'm sure I will next episode, but that's okay. I'll do an old school season 1 style.
Season 1 style
up on Instagram. Yeah,
I'm real hit or miss with the Instagram stuff. So I have a couple of banter clips before we hop into the Book of Revelation, and one of them I actually haven't seen this clip in its entirety, but this is a friend of the show. You will recognize this individual. It's our buddy Joel Webbin. I don't think we've seen him in a while. And so,
Joel.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the Supreme Court and how I think this clip is how he doesn't want women on the Supreme Court, I think. Shocking. Let's see what he's got to say.
The 3 judges who dissented, again, Jackson, Kagan, Sotomayor, all 3 of them women. One of them, Kagan, is a Jew, and Sotomayor is a second-generation Puerto Rican immigrant. What we need, if we're going to succeed as a nation, we need many things. First and foremost, we need repentance of our sin and turning in faith to the Lord Jesus Christ. But in terms of practicalities, political solutions, we need men in office. We need them not to be Jewish or Islamic or anything else, but Christian men in office. And we need them to be American Christian men in office. I have a dream, brothers and sisters. It's a simple dream. I don't feel like it's that big of an ask. Right? There's other things we could get more technical. I've talked in more specificities about my position in the past, but if I could just have 3 things, it would be this. When it comes to the political rulers, the civil magistrate in our nation, I would like them to be Christian American men.
Okay, I gotta say, Kayla, that was worse than I thought it was going to be. That was actually, I hadn't seen that clip yet. I'd only seen someone like put a slight blurb in the description of it, but that was my first time watching it all the way through. I don't know, surprised is the wrong word, but I wasn't he's like, by the way, she's a Jew. Like, whoa, okay. That's even worse than I thought. Cool. Yeah.
Well, I liked his comment, like, I could get technical. Like, no, you couldn't. First of all, Joel, no, you fucking couldn't. Number 1. Number 2, that looks like the same. Does he do a podcast or something? I think I asked this before, because it looks like the same setting of like previous interviews with him that I've seen. Like, is he still like putting out content? That's a question.
Yeah, he does a
Yeah.
podcast. I don't know what it's called, but I haven't.
Well, we don't need to spread that for
Yeah,
anyone,
yeah.
but I was just wondering. Okay, well, he sucks, but yeah, that's brutal. But it's, as I was sitting there listening to him, I was like thinking of specific people I know that are like, yep, that's it. That, you know, so I don't know.
Hasn't it seemed like things have gotten worse? I don't feel like anyone
know.
with a public platform would have said this 15 years ago. I can't imagine like anybody,
Oh,
like even like Rush Limbaugh or something. I couldn't imagine him sitting up there saying, I don't want any women or Jewish people on Supreme, like explicitly stating that. And even going with the, well, there's this one woman there, one is Jewish, obviously she's out. There's another one who's Puerto Rican.
2 strikes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then it's like and you know, they need to be American men. It's like, all right, Puerto Ricans are Americans. I don't know why this is confusing to people that Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. You're born in Puerto Rico, you are an American citizen, just like if you were born in Texas. There's no difference. But you know, they're not the right kind of American, if you know what I'm saying. It's not the right kind, which I was waiting for him to go there. I was actually waiting for him to say that he wanted white Americans on the court and white Americans.
Yeah, what was the MLK reference too? Like, what even was that? Because I was too, and I was just like, oh, are we? I don't know what he was doing there.
Yeah, yeah, it's really dark. I'm actually really worried about where this is going to go in the next 5-10 years or so, because there's only so far that they can push. Like, he does this honestly for what we're doing right now, because he knows it'll catch people's attention, and it's acerbic, and it's something that will draw as much attention to his cause and his platform as possible. But when you're on the right, the way you do that is by being vile. It's like, you know, like, you ever heard like virtue signaling on the right? They don't virtue signal, they vice signal. They do the exact opposite. They're like, yeah, I'm going to be like the most obnoxious, cruel, racist, bigoted, sexist piece of shit around. And that's going to, you know, be rewarded by a giant sack of cash. Where do they go from here? Like, honestly, like, how could you possibly get worse than where they are now? I don't really know.
I don't love that question because I don't want to see them get worse. Like, that's my first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, I mean, you referenced X or Twitter earlier. I definitely think culturally that was or when that became, I don't know when politicians exactly started getting on Twitter and X, but that was a weird turning point for us, for sure, too, I think. But
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's
pretty bad. And so this is another clip I got going. I don't know if you've seen this, but there is, oh boy, a lot going on in the Middle East, folks. I'm sure you've heard it. And there is a strong pro-Zionist cause that's still vibrant in the United States. It is not as powerful as it was when we were kids. You know, like, people actually know what's going on and are awakening to the idea that, hey, genocide is bad. Maybe we shouldn't be supporting a military doing ethnic cleansing on the behalf of the United States' allied nation. But what's really funny is I have a clip here of someone who I can't stand, someone who I wish, who actually fits the description of what I mentioned earlier with the caustic right wing, which is Tucker Carlson. But Tucker Carlson is interviewing Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson differ on this, in which Ted Cruz does support the callous and destructive policies of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli Defense Force. And Tucker Carlson, you know, broken clocks and all, he's against it. And Ted Cruz brings up something that you've definitely heard in your time in the independent fundamentalist movement, Kayla, and I thought you would appreciate this clip. So here we go. Let's see what old Teddy Cruz has to say.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is. But that's like, gee, I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker,
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
But he's the prime minister,
right?
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is
there.
silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
That's what God was talking about in
Yes.
Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
Okay, just your raw reaction to that, Kayla. I've seen this clip like 5 times, so I just wanted to get your raw response seeing that.
Well, I have seen the whole interview. I really enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it just as much just then. And my first initial thought was like, wow, we just talked about this on the last episode. About that reference as, being preached that we needed to support Israel as Christians, like it was part of God's, word. But yeah, I thought Tucker did really well with the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was wondering too if there was people in his ear going, stop, because like the dynamic throughout that whole interview was incredible. It's funny.
Yeah, I hate to give the devil his due, but Tucker Carlson did a great job on that. You laughed when it happened. It's one of my favorite things to do as well, is when he said, well, the Bible's, in Sunday school, I grew up being taught those who bless Israel will be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. And Tucker says, well, where is that exactly? Like, where in the Bible is this? Like, this verse that you're so proud of. And of course, he didn't know. And I love that Tucker Carlson just like dismissively said, it's in Genesis, by the way. That's something I would do. That is something I would do right there. It's exactly something I would do.
Yeah, and it definitely has a lot to do with the chapters that we're covering tonight. I think that content. Okay, hang on 1 second.
All right, folks, we got a break in the show right here. So, yeah, the verse that Tucker, or I guess Ted Cruz, had brought up first, it says, it doesn't actually say what Ted Cruz says, that those who bless Israel shall be blessed, those who curse Israel will be cursed. What it actually is God talking to Abraham. I think it's Genesis 12:3. And God says that those who bless your descendants, I will bless, and those who curse your descendants, I will curse. It doesn't say anything about the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel didn't exist for hundreds of years, hundreds of years after that. So, yeah. Hold on, my cat is back up here, but it is pretty funny. Are we back, Kayla?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, we are so back. Okay, so moving on from the first book of the Bible to the last book of the Bible. I think I mentioned last episode that the book of Revelation is my second favorite book in the Bible. It is a wild read. It's really fun. Genesis, it's hard to top. Genesis has the flood. It's got the creation story. It's got the Nephilim. It's got Adam and Eve. It's got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I mean, I dare you to find a boring chapter in the book of Genesis. You can't do it. It can't happen. It's really fun. But let's move on to the book of Revelation. Last episode, we had talked about the 4 horsemen and a few other things, and we had just gotten to the seals. So let's go to Revelation chapter 8, where we have the angels and the trumpets. I also like the fact that there's a verse in the Bible that says that when Jesus returns, he will return with a shout and the trump of God. And it's like, okay, well, we got the trump of God here. All right. Oh, Kayla, I got to tell you something too. Last episode, you said, I don't think the Antichrist is mentioned, like the actual word is mentioned in the book of Revelation. And I said, I thought it was. You were right. It's not. It's not in there. It's yeah, you were right. Because I went and checked that. Because I was like, I remember people saying the Antichrist wasn't mentioned, but it's in like 1 John or something, or 3 John, but it's not in the book of Revelation. So I want to know you were correct on that. Okay. Let's move on to Revelation chapter 8 with the trumpets. Let's see what we got here, folks. We love our trumpets, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. And it says as follows. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. A third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass is burned up. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned to blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky onto the third. There's a lot of thirds here, folks. Like 33% is the magic fraction here. Third of the waters turned bitter. Many people died from the waters. Fourth angel sounded his trumpet. A third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and also a third of the night, which is already without light. I guess the moon. As I watched, I heard an eagle that was flying in midair call out in a loud voice, because eagles can talk. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the trumpet blast about to be sounded by the other 3 angels. I wanted to get your opinion on. Kayla, did you go away? What happened? Well, oh, she's back. Oh, okay. Wait, did you hear what happened? Oh.
I had a kid thing. Sorry, they're fighting.
Oh.
I did hear about 2/3 of it. Oh my goodness. Hang on. TJ, I know that we're live. I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to take it for a second.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what I was gonna mention here was that what this reminds me of, actually reminds is the wrong word. I guess what I thought of when I was reading this is like mass extinction events. Like I've lived through one. I'm some sort of expert on it. I'm not. But if you look through Earth's history, you will find, I don't know if it's like 6 or 7 times where we've had mass extinction events over the last, 500 million years or so. And I remember seeing a really interesting theory about this. And it was called the Nemesis theory. That, God, I wish Kayla was here for this. It's actually a pretty interesting story. I want to get her opinion on this. But I'll go through some comments here while I wait for her. Banking has... Oh, that's Ben. It's okay. He can say that. When it comes to the right to self-defense, Elizabeth Bruning did an interview describing cycles of revenge. Tucker Carlson actually did a video about how Israel is killing Christians in the West Bank and in Gaza. He was widely panned as anti-Semitic, and his video was suppressed. God, I hate being on Tucker Carlson's side. I hate that so much because he's such a terrible human being. And Jazz Hands. Realize fascists. Realize fascists. All right. Israel's an illegal occupying settler, apartheid, ethno-state committing genocide. The genocide thing there. Kayla, I don't know if you've seen this, but when people censor themselves in social media posts where like they won't say kill, they'll say unalive and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. I mean, if you're going to talk about sexual assault, you can say rape. You don't say grape. Yeah. No. It seems disrespectful.
Almost, like, takes something away from, the the violence of it, the crime of it, the violation of
yes,
it. Just say it what it is.
it's a serious topic, and it deserves serious language. Like if I had a loved one who was raped and murdered, and I saw a video that said, TJ's relative was unalived by a pew pew after being raped, I'd want to strangle that person. Like no, like
Yeah.
don't disrespect this serious issue going on here. So I don't know. People do it because they say that their videos will be suppressed if they use the real ones. I haven't seen that, honestly. Like sometimes your videos just suck, people. It just happens. It's okay. It's okay to admit it. But all right. So what I was going to mention, Kayla, I started, but I wanted you here for this because I think it's an interesting topic. I wanted to hear what your thoughts were. So when it talks about a third of the stars falling into the ocean, and basically a third of all life being wiped out on the planet, and all the destruction in 33%, increments, it reminded me of the fact that we've had lots of mass extinctions on Earth going back the last, 500 million years. I think we've had about 500 million years of animal life. I think something like that. And we've had several times in the fossil record where it seems that 70, 80, 90% of all life is wiped out at one time. And I heard an interesting theory on why this might be the case. And it's called the nemesis theory, which I really love. Because if you look out into the universe, almost every star we see is a binary system. You have two stars that orbit each other. You very, very rarely see a single star by itself, which is what we have. We just have one star, and that's the exception, not the rule. So this theory posits that the sun is actually part of a binary system, and that the sun's twin star in the binary system is a brown dwarf star. And a brown dwarf star is really dim. It's really cool. Like, I don't know, maybe a few hundred degrees or a few thousand degrees. Like you couldn't see it in a telescope because it's not bright enough, but it's still a star and it has a ton of mass. So every, I don't know, 100 million years or so, this star comes closer and closer to the sun, and it brings with it a ton of debris, a ton of asteroids, a ton of just objects that rain into our solar system and cause mass extinctions on Earth every 100 million years or so. I love this theory. I love it. I have no idea if it's true. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. It's just a postulation. But this is what it sounds like to me, that we're going to have this mass extinction that John of Patmos saw.
Yeah. Well, all the fire and brimstone definitely would make sense, I think, with their knowledge of what those events are and what it would look like and all that. So,
yeah.
I mean, it had to be like a huge fear.
Yeah. Fire mixed with blood. I love it. It sounds like a band or something like that. Okay. All right. So chapter 9, Kayla, what do we got?
So basically in chapter 9, they are continuing with the 5th and 6th trumpets. More of the terrible things that are going to happen during Revelations. A star falls from heaven. It's like an angelic being. It could be some interpretations think it's just like a fallen angel. Some people think it's Satan, and gets the key to the bottomless pit. The pit's open and the scorpion locusts come out. So we talked about those last episode. And instead of eating vegetation, obviously those are there to torment people without the seal of God. In this last 5 months, the locusts are also often interpreted as demonic beings. And then let's see. Then the 6th angel blows the trumpet, and the angels are prepared for a specific day, hour, month, and year. This was a huge emphasis because they would later part of Revelation is the undoing of time, which is kind of interesting. The army of the 200 million troops come in, and basically humanity is punished for not repenting for idolatry and murders and sorcery and fornication and theft. And the emphasis on idolatry is always interesting to me because that's so weird. I don't know what's that definition really? I don't know. But it's basically, spiritual warfare, divine judgment. Again, it's so harshly contradictory to so much else of the Bible because Jesus is portrayed as like forgiving and when he died on the cross, like that was it, that defeated Satan. So this is all building up to Satan's like final fall, second fall. I don't really kind of get that part. But and then yeah, God's control over time and judgment, like I don't know, we created time, I guess, but yeah, that's chapter 9.
The Yeah, a lot to say about that one. Your talk about the idolatry thing is kind of fascinating because
Mhm.
idolatry is a really big deal in the Old Testament. That it's not like worshiping other gods, that's a problem. Worshiping their idols really seems to be an issue. Like really seems to be an issue. Like the existence of this idol is somehow a threat to the Lord God Almighty and everything, which never it did it always seem weird to you that whenever like you'd read the story of Exodus, right? And God delivers the Israelites out of Egypt and he has the plagues, he miracles left and right, helps them conquer the land and everything. And then they abandon him for a rain god, right? Like did that always seem weird to you whenever you read that?
Yeah. I also like could never wrap my mind around. I'm a Scorpio. You're a Scorpio, so you know this. But I've been a jealous person since childhood. So I remember like being raised that you know jealousy was like bad. And then reading it in the Bible, like don't envy your neighbor. Even the Bible says it's bad. But then the Bible says he's a jealous God. Like God describes himself as a jealous God, and some of this behavior is like, yikes, yeah. So it's conflicting. It's odd, and that really I see a lot in the idolatry stories.
Yeah, it it always confused me as a kid. Like why is God jealous of anything? Why would he care? Like you have the Lord, like capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, and then someone says, "Yeah, I'm going to worship the god of volcanoes." First, why would you do that? Like you already have the god of everything. Why would you leave him for random god of one?
It just feels like if you're the God of everything, you'd be like, okay, sure,
Yeah,
go do that.
exactly. It's like,
Okay.
oh, you'll come crying back when you need something
Well,
else. You'll come to the god of everything, right?
when lava's not the answer, let me know.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
then, I found out when I got older that, oh, if you look at ancient Near Eastern religions, you'll find out that the God we know, Yahweh, was essentially like a war and storm god. Like Yahweh was part of a pantheon of other gods. Like God was
Mm.
part of the pantheon with Baal and Asherah and all that, which is why Yahweh is so obsessed with blood. Why Yahweh is just like, yeah, more blood. I love it. It makes a lot of sense. I said, oh,
More blood.
that would explain the jealousy thing because
Yeah.
like essentially you're leaving God for one of his siblings and that would piss him off. So yeah, I kind of got that, but it sticks around. It sticks around. It's like, yeah, no more idols. And wow, this is me at my most I don't know if it's self-deprecating, but I hate to say this, but you're gonna love this, Kayla. That
But
you mentioned how we're both Scorpios and everything, and
yeah,
of course, I don't fuck with astrology or anything like that. But
I
I
do.
was thinking the other day that my co-host on the Left Wing, the politics show I do, he is also a Scorpio, and I
Wow,
have
that's crazy.
there are several guests that I have, and I was looking at my favorite guests, also Scorpios, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna hate to admit this. Like I'm gonna hate once again. It's not evidence of anything. I want to make that very clear. Coincidence does not equal evidence. But I was
I
like,
mean,
yeah, Kayla's gonna love to hear this. Yeah, I was just gonna bring that
I know
up.
where you're going with this.
Yeah. So congratulations on that. It would be unfair to not tell you that after
I love that.
yeah.
One of my kids is a Scorpio. The other one's like a cusp kid. My dad's a Scorpio. Like, I love it. It's a
What
we're a good
what
we're a good sign.
what does like astrologically what does Scorpio mean?
A lot of cool stuff, but intensely jealous is definitely one of our staple natures. Mysterious, like tends to be like type A, kind of like us, like, you know. Anyway, back to Revelations though. Don't make me tell everyone about the signs,
All right.
how to relate to them.
That's all right. I wanted to bring up our favorite part of this. Because I didn't read the chapters that you had, and I forgot you had the locust one. That's at that we.
Well, last time you had the scripture, so I didn't know if you wanted me to read or to either. I hope I told that in a good way. Was that
Oh,
understandable?
oh yeah, it was. I
Okay.
wanted to get the right from the horse's mouth here about that. So here we go. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. I'm not sure what that means because you know what? I forgot they were scorpion. You know what? Let's keep reading. We'll find out. I'm sure John won't leave us hanging here. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and given power like scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree. Weird command for locusts. That's like locusts' thing, to harm grass and trees and everything. But only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. That's hilarious. That there's like, don't kill them, but make them suffer. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. During these days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. The locusts look like horses prepared for battle. Now, Kayla, does that mean that they were like locust-sized horses or horse-sized locusts? That there's a big difference there.
Well,
which
I don't know, because there is also demonic horses described in this chapter as well. So
All right.
I think that the locusts were like, yeah, lion's teeth. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
says
crazy.
the locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushed into battle. They had tails with stingers, like scorpions, and on their tails they had the power to torment for 5 months. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in the Greek is Apollyon. That is
Which
the
means destroyer.
destroyer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that answered our question there, that these were horse-sized locusts with crowns on their head, human faces, I guess long hair. It said hair like a woman's hair, so I guess long hair, and armored for combat, and wings that sounded like claps of thunder. I remember reading that passage as a kid, and I never forgot it. I had this image in my head of a giant locust with a scorpion tail and crowns and human faces. One of the more terrifying descriptions of anything in the Bible, if you ask me.
I remember when the Scorpion King came out with The Rock. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that movie.
Is
Yeah.
that it? Is that what the locusts are going to look like? I mean, long hair, scorpion bod. He was pretty spot on. But yeah, no, pretty terrifying. And again, like, why? Why, after this whole Bible being about forgiveness and Jesus did it all, and he was so gentle and kind, and he went right to the cross, and that was, again, like, Satan's fault. Like, why? I don't understand. And why are we so angry all of a sudden? It seems really human to me,
Yes, yeah. I know. Funny. The human explanation for it, at least in my opinion, I guess I didn't know John of Patmos. Seemed like a fun guy though. Like the guy who wrote this book. Like I would like to party with him. Like partake in some illicit substances or whatever, and just yeah, I'm sure he could tell a hell of a story. When not a dull time when you invite old JP, but at this time when the book of Revelation was written in the, I don't know, early 2nd century, you would have had, I think Nero was in charge, because they referenced Nero 666, and Nero persecuted Christians. That was kind of his thing. He blamed Christians for the fire in Rome. And I think this is kind of like revenge fantasy that he's doing, that the Romans and Nero are punishing Christians. They're setting us on fire. They're feeding us to lions. Well, wouldn't it be cool if God came down and tortured all these people who are torturing us? That's my best guess on why this is such a bloodthirsty, not only bloodthirsty, but like a gleeful, like exigent joy, like a libidinal pleasure they're taking place. I think they even said, like, in the passage we read last week, where the saints said, "How long will we have to wait to see the
It's
unbelievable?"
lyrical. How long will we have to wait? It's lyrical. Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah. They can't wait to get their jolly
Yeah.
seeing people tortured. So this also has a. Did you ever get asked this question? I remember getting asked this question when I was in my 20s, when I was still a believer, and someone asked about heaven and hell, and said that, okay, so when you die, TJ, you go to heaven, right? I was like, yeah, of course. And they said, and you're still the same person. You're not just, oh no, it's going to be me. And they said, well, what about your friends and family who don't make it to heaven? And you know they're going to be in hell. How could you have joy for an eternity when you know that your friends, family, and loved ones are suffering? How could that possibly be compatible? Were you ever asked that?
I feel like I've definitely heard this preached on too. There was some polished answer to it. But yeah, for sure, I have.
Yeah, the Bible, it kind of references it. Maybe it's directly or indirectly, but it talks about God wiping the tears from your eyes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the response is like, well, isn't that brainwashing? Like, isn't that just, making you a different person altogether? And I remember the answer
No,
that
like,
I
I
gave.
think I'm still gonna miss my friend or my loved one.
Yeah, right.
But
And
okay.
so the answer that I remember giving was that, yeah, I'm the same person, but I've like matured or changed. Because, if you found TJ at 11 years old, I'm technically still the same person, but I don't think anything like him. I think that's the answer I kind of gave, but it's kind of weak though, because you're right. Like, you're telling me you're going to grow out of loving your family or your friends. Like, that's that while they're suffering, by the way, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to chapter 10 here. Now, there's not a lot in chapter 10, which is why I added chapter 12, because chapter 10 is so short. In fact, I'm only going to read a tiny snippet of it because I think
Wait,
it's
I
kind
don't
of.
have to do 11 or 12, right? I thought I was doing 9 and 10. Do I do 10?
I thought I had you do 9 and 11. But okay. But
Oh,
if you're ready for 10.
I am ready for 10.
All right, do 10. Yeah, do 10.
Okay, I'm so sorry. All right. So, the seventh trumpet comes in chapter 10, and the mighty angel comes down when he has this like text or scroll, and he's got big main entrance, like rainbow over his head, clouds, suns on his face, feet, pillars of fire, and he's got this little scroll. Opens it, and it's like it's the only text that like we don't get to hear at any point. So he reads it, and I guess John hears it, but we don't get to. He also had one foot on the sea and one on the land, and which is like to show his like full authority over the whole world, all that stuff. And his voice was like a lion's roar. So yeah, he reads the sealed prophecy, and then the angel raises his hands and swears that time shall be no longer, which is why there was all those time references before, like the 5 months specification with Wolfie, with the scorpion locusts and all that stuff, because there's this big statement that, God's in control of time, which is man-made. So I think that's funny. So all the mysteries of God are fulfilled. And then he eats the scroll. He eats the scroll, so it gets weird. And John says that it's sweet and bitter in his mouth and bitter in his stomach, which I don't care how sweet anything is. Like, if it's going to make my stomach hurt, that doesn't sound like a good thing. Well, anyway, but everyone's happy because they received the joy of God's word, and that there's also like some bitterness because of obviously a lot of judgment has just happened. He is told that he must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. So more like divine mystery, more at that withheld revelation, which is kind of unique in the whole book of Revelations. Emphasis on God's timing and prophetic calling and responsibility. And apparently, like it was just a lot on John to tell this story too.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of irony in it.
Yeah. It's a pretty tall order they got for old John here. I mean, it's not every day you're called up to speak with celestials and report that to regular human beings. Like, how could you possibly get that done? The part that I was going to read is you brushed it at the end there because it's just so weird. It's just so odd. Like, I mean, this is the book of Revelation we're talking about here. Everything's weird, but this section right here at the end just really weirded me out, where with the angel and the scroll. And it says, then the voice that I had heard from heaven spoke to me once more. Go take the scroll that lies open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and asked him to give me the little scroll. He said to me, take it and eat it. It will turn your stomach sour, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey. I took the scroll from the angel's hand and ate it. It tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I'd eaten it, my stomach turned sour. Then I was told, you must prophesy again about my people, language, and king. I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that at all.
I don't really think I do either. Honestly.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I was like, he what? He ate it?
Yeah, and I didn't really look into it, actually. I didn't study like a scholarly interpretation of it or anything like that. It's like a lot of weird stories there, but eating the scroll, like that is I don't know. I'm trying to think of weirder things people ate in the Holy Bible, and I don't think I can think of one.
Yeah. What a weird thing to do.
Very strange.
Like all that fire and brimstone, and you had to have him eat it. Like why not just be like, bro, burn it, like burn after reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's some symbolism that I guess is
Yeah,
lost over thousands of years.
The symbolism, I think, is that it was going to be like, it was so sweet. Like it tasted sweet in his mouth. It was refreshing. It was good. It's God's prophecy, but it was going to be hard for him to have to go out and like retell this thing. So like as it's coming back out of him, it's hurt. It's causing pain in the stomach, which I think is so. I think it's how I've heard it preached on. I don't think that's like an original me interpretation either. How hard it can be to carry God's word forward, and hard it is for, especially those called, I'm thinking of missionaries, preachers and stuff, like kind of what a burden kind of sermon, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I can see
Not
that.
burden, but
the missionaries. I don't know if you guys out there ever had missionaries come visit your church. On Wednesday nights, they'd come and they'd always have a slideshow. They'd always have a slideshow showing the areas that they'd attend. And they would always say this one line. They would always say, French Guiana only has one Bible-believing Christian church there. They always made that very specific because damn well there's more than one church in this entire country, right? But they weren't the right kind of churches. So we had to go there and spread that word for ourselves. And then they would always conclude by playing People Need the Lord on a loop while they asked you to come donate. Do you remember that stuff, Kayla?
Oh, yeah. And we talked about our missionary conspiracy theories, I think in season 1, but they only get deeper.
What was that? What was that? I don't remember. What did we say?
Well, just that, like kind of what you just said. We shared that, and then we talked about like the mystery of what was really going on, and like why take your whole family over there, and the places that they would go to, and the fluctuation of that. But yeah, I think missionary work is really interesting, especially post Helene, because we have had so many people come through. I mean, I would say such a huge percentage of the volunteer force that has come in and made an impact in WNC has been church groups, and I've seen it firsthand, and like that's amazing. But there's also like more of a weird underbelly to ministry work than we've probably even began to uncover. I mean, think about like what we talk about here in the IFB movement. We've talked about a lot of like abuse of kids and racial stuff, but I mean that's like kind of it's in your face stuff. Like we often talk about how did this go unnoticed for so long or unchecked, like Bob Jones University, whatever. But there's no holds bars on missionary work in a lot of these places that they go. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, there'd be even less oversight than you'd have here, like in the mainland United States. I mean, who's watching you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Chapter 11. Bankruptcy, chapter 11. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
This is all going to be new to me. I didn't read ahead. I'm excited.
Oh, well, me too.
Well, newish.
So, yeah, so let's
I'm
read
sorry, TJ. You're better on your feet than me.
So, all right. But this is something that we'll both know. The two witnesses. So we already know that topic. So,
Oh, yeah.
all right. I was given a reed like a measuring rod and was told, go and measure the temple of God and the altar with its worshipers, but exclude the outer court. Do not measure it because it has been given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. And I will appoint. What was that?
I was like, they will fuck it up. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, you know how we Gentiles do, okay, right? I mean, that's how we roll. All right. I will appoint 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days. Very specific. Clothed in sackcloth. They are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth. If anyone tries to harm them, fire comes out of their mouths and devours their enemies. God made them half dragon, apparently. This is how anyone who wants to harm them must die. They have power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain during the time they are prophesying, and they have power to turn the water into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now, when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these 2 prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. Now, I remember people bringing up the 2 witnesses a lot when it came to eschatology and talking about the end times and everything. And they're not named, but I remember pastors saying several times, like several people I heard say this, that they believe the witnesses were, I think, Moses and Elijah. Do you remember them, like, naming them or anything like that? Or is that just me? No? Oh, you're muted.
I can't remember specifically, but that sounds right. I mean, I can already like draw references as to why they would say that. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember them saying that. And then there are a lot of things in Revelation that people try to square the circle to fit modern times. We talked about yesterday how they had to account for the fact that the United States doesn't seem to be mentioned or anything even resembling the United States. So one of 2 things had to happen. Either John just decided to ignore the United States or that the United States had been decimated or
the writers had no knowledge of the United States.
That can't be one of the options, Kayla. That can't be one of the options, obviously. So, that either the United States didn't exist anymore, like this is so far in the future that what we know of the United States isn't real anymore, or the end times are imminent, as they were convinced it was, and the United States has somehow lost its position as the superpower or one of the major global superpowers. And they said that something's going to happen to weaken the United States to make it not mentioned in the book of Revelation. And it's probably because Bill Clinton is president, and Bill Clinton is going to destroy this wonderful nation of ours with his Democrat nonsense. And so that's what I remember hearing a lot. And another thing with the witnesses is the passage mentions the fact that everyone around the world, actually what it says is that certain people from every nation in the world will see these witnesses over 3.5 days.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they would say that, well, I mean, how could that possibly happen 2,000 years ago? Like, someone from every nation in the world is just going to happen to be there with 3 days. But this is proof the Bible is real, because you can show it on TV. That's how everyone in the world could see their bodies over 3 days. I remember them saying that as some sort of some hint to fulfill prophecy. I don't know if you remember hearing that, but I thought I got to give points. It was pretty clever.
I hope I didn't hear that because we were so anti-TV. What? I don't, I would have been sitting. I probably blocked it out if I did because I would have been sitting there as like a 13-year-old being like, wait a minute, I can't watch Brady, but we're gonna watch the apocalypse. Like, whatever.
Well, you wouldn't have seen it. You would have been in heaven, so you'd have been fine. That's for the heathens to watch.
I
Yeah.
knew I wasn't going. Okay, yeah, going.
Yeah. So, anything else on the two witnesses?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my tea.
All right. So let's finish up here with chapter 12, The Woman and the Dragon. Sounds like a TV show or something. I think it would be The Woman and the Dragon. All right. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. I vividly remember reading this chapter because, whoa, what a start there. All right, I'm in. Well, what does this even mean? Like a woman clothed in the sun, wearing the moon under her feet, and like a crown of 12 stars on her head. There's that visual I've never forgotten when I first picked this up.
Sounds like a baddie to me.
Right? Yeah. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. I also remember thinking, okay, this woman is wearing the sun and she's crying out in pain. What could possibly hurt her? If she's wearing the sun as a garment, I don't think pregnancy is going to be high on the list of things that could visibly damage her.
Well, I heard pregnancy, and then I thought, oh, bummer. After you described the hair and the sun and all that stuff, and I was just like, oh, dang, that's
yeah.
They make everybody pregnant.
She's not at her peak. She's not at her best right here. She's in a weakened state. She's carrying a child. All right. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. I remember this being very confusing to me because I didn't know if the 10 horns were shared amongst the 7 heads or if all 7 heads had 10 horns. And, right? Like, that sounds weird. Like, it says 7 heads and 10 horns. It's like, okay, so like 6 dragons have 1 horn and 1 dragon has 4 horns. Like, how does that work? What was that?
I said so many possibilities.
Yeah. And then it says, its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky. How many goddamn stars are left? I feel like they've wiped out a third of the stars 10 times by now and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that it might devour her child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. So after the whole story with a woman giving birth and her son being snatched away by God, stealing children or killing them is kind of high on God's priority list. He loves this, even like weird celestial ones at that. But I like that it kept us in suspense as to who the red dragon was until the very end. So there's a battle with Michael, with the red dragon. And by the way, the red dragon is Satan. I know I didn't tell you guys that, but just so you know, that's what's going on here. But, well, what do you think of the epic battle there?
Again, I think it's like cinematic. Like, why? I would have to have read that like 10 times to have grasped even like what that was saying. I'm sure when I was going through KJV version of it. But yeah, just a lot going on. I don't know.
The battles. The angelic battles, the battles of the principalities of the air and darkness and everything, I was always fascinated by those when I was a kid. Do you remember in the book of Daniel that an angel shows up to Daniel to answer his prayers or deliver a message to him? And the angel apologizes to Daniel. And the angel says, hey, sorry, I meant to be here several days ago, but I was stuck in a battle with the Prince of Persia, the demon who rules over Persia, and we fought for a long time.
Okay, Angel. What do you say to that? I'm just imagining being was it Daniel?
Daniel.
David would do it. Yeah, Daniel. I would be like, okay, Angel. Like, what the hell? I'm sorry.
Well, when I read that, I said, okay, I want to read that story. Like, tell me the story of the angel fighting with the demon. Why do I have to hear this secondhand? I have to read a dozen chapters of exactly how much grain God wants for an offering, but you're not going to give me a story of an angel and a demon fighting? That's what I want to hear, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out that Lucifer's a bitch. Okay. Lucifer, he takes L's this entire book, right? His first mistake is challenging God. Okay. God, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I should be just like God. Why you would ever say that out loud, I guess it wouldn't matter. God knows what you're thinking. Of course, he gets his ass kicked, right? And then whenever he fights Michael, gets his ass kicked too. I think Satan gets he gets a lot of he gets gassed up a lot, but he takes a lot of L's.
That's a good point. I wonder if he really did take that many L's, though. You know, again, I think it's reading like a scorned party's view here. Very human, very like, I don't know, one-sided.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It's also, I like to point out that if anyone says that they're talking to God or that they know God's direction for them, I like to ask them how they know they're not actually talking to Satan. That's a good question for people, because how would you know, right? How could you possibly know? Like, you're convinced that, oh no, I would know the difference between God and Satan. No, you wouldn't. Like Satan is compared to you, basically omnipotent, right? He's the light bringer. He's the most beautiful angel that God exalted, and smarter than you could ever hope to be, right? I could trick you, okay? Whoever you're listening out there, I guarantee you, I could trick you quite easily. And you're telling me Satan
Quite
couldn't do?
easily.
Yeah, quite easily. You're telling me Satan, who's smarter than a billion TJs, couldn't trick you? Yes, he could. How do you know he didn't write the Bible, right? How do you know Satan didn't actually write this? And I don't know. It's just like, once you bring that in, hold on, let's see. The woman and the dragon makes me think of Khaleesi now, but she used to make me think of Hagar and Ishmael when I was a kid. Okay.
Yeah, oh wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, Hagar and Ishmael.
I like Khaleesi better though, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
again,
mean,
what of you? I mean, cinematic.
right. Yeah, Hagar didn't have any dragons, so yeah, I think that if I had to pick one, I'd pick that. But okay, so that wraps up chapter 12 right there. Any final thoughts on the book of Revelation so far, Kayla?
No, other than like, I'm so glad I don't have to sit and sit through sermons about stuff like this, because in this political climate, I can't imagine like,
Yeah, oh my God.
I don't know, it just seems like it's got to be like a really taxing emotional pull back and forth. I mean, if you're consuming media and any kind of media, which you can't really be shielded from, and I don't know, just still actively consuming Bible text. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that's it. This was a good episode, and yeah.
All right, cool. It was bad back then, but it's got to be worse now. It's a good point. I can't imagine sitting in like the churches we grew up now, because all the folks are even more insane than they were back then. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time on the Kids From It, where we'll cover more of the end of days later.